Number 10. Habib Nurmagomedov is the number 1 lightweight in the UFC. He has been known to talk trash to his opponents on Twitter. He recently claimed that he would beat both Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather in one night. Other incidences include calling Donald Cowboy Cerrone fake, bashing Anthony Pettis when he lost his title, and saying both Eddie Alvarez and Nate Diaz are scared to fight him. Number 9. Daniel Cormier is the current UFC light heavyweight champion of the world. He is seen as a humble, respectful fighter, but he does have a gift to talk trash when he needs to. Leading up to his fight against Jon Jones at UFC 182, he kept calling Jon Jones fake, as well as saying he would spit in his face. When Ryan Bader confronted him at the UFC 187 press conference, Daniel Cormier said to Ryan Bader that he would be the easiest fight in the division. Number 8. Dominic Cruz is the current UFC bantamweight champion. He is known to irritate his opponents before fighting them. At the UFC 199 press conference, Dominic Cruz said that Uriah Faber wouldn't be able to reach him with his little T-Rex arms. He mentioned that he thought Cody Garbrandt was CM Punk, and mentioned to TJ Dillashaw's face that he's a fake person, that he would school him when they fight. Number 7. Ronda Rousey is the former UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. She is known to trash talk her opponents before fighting them. When she was scheduled to face Bethe Correia at UFC 190, Ronda Rousey mentioned she would prolong the fight just to punish her for making remarks about her committing suicide. Ronda Rousey has also made remarks about the drug test failure of Chris Cyborg Justino, saying she should be arrested for fighting whilst using PEDs. Other incidences include saying she would defeat the whole roster of the UFC bantamweights with only one hand. Number 6. Michael Bisping is the current UFC middleweight champion. He is known to always engage in trash talking his opponents and does get heat from the fans for doing so. When he faced Anderson Silva at UFC Fight Night 84 at the weigh-ins, he called Anderson Silva a cheat, a fraud, and said that all the steroids would not help him in the fight. When he won the UFC middleweight title from Luke Rockhold at UFC 199, he talked trash to Luke Rockhold at the post-fight press conference, saying Luke Rockhold needs to shut up as he got knocked out. Number 5. Tito Ortiz is the former UFC light heavyweight champion and was one of the original trash talkers in the UFC. Whilst in a feud with Ken Shamrock, he laughed at him, flipping him off in the cage, as well as being very outspoken about the UFC president Dana White. He was seen at the weigh-ins wearing a shirt which said, "Dana is my bitch." Number 4. Josh Koscheck is one of the original bad boys to ever compete in the UFC. He was one of the most entertaining trash talkers who always made an effort to make sure the fans tuned in to see his fight. When he fought Paul Daly at UFC 113, he talked so much trash to him during the fight that Paul Daly ended up punching him after the fight, which had resulted in Paul Daly's release. In his post-fight, he insulted thousands of Canadians whilst in Canada. He will be remembered for being one of the most entertaining trash talkers in the UFC. Number 3. The Diaz brothers are masters at trash talking. Nick Diaz is possibly the only person who got under GSP's skin, as GSP asked the UFC to fight him just to shut him up. Nate Diaz has called out top lightweights such as Anthony Pettis and Eddie Alvarez, saying they're scared to fight him. Both brothers even trash talk their opponents whilst fighting them in the octagon. When Nick Diaz fought Anderson Silva, Nick Diaz lied down in front of Anderson Silva, who is one of the most scariest strikers in MMA. The Diaz brothers are amongst the best when it comes to trash talking their opponents. Number 2. Chael Sonnen has brought trash talking to a whole new level. He has claimed that he is the best fighter in the world. He insulted Brazil, claiming he was the champion. He antagonized Anderson Silva leading up to UFC 148. He made a remark about Anderson Silva's wife. During the weigh-in, Anderson Silva hit his shoulder in his face, creating more hype for the fight. His trash talking was able to get him a title fight against then UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones after losing to Anderson Silva. He always generated a lot of attention when he fought and definitely helped the UFC to reach new heights. Number 1. Conor McGregor is the UFC featherweight champion who uses his trash talking and pre-fight antics to sell his fights, which has made him the most popular MMA fighter today. He is known to predict his fights as well as saying what he wants. He has had many moments of getting under his opponent's skin. These include calling Cub Swanson an old man, calling Dustin Poirier a hillbilly with a weak chin. Others include grabbing Jose Aldo's belt during their world tour, calling Dennis Seaver a midget German steroid head, telling Chad Mendes that he would rest his balls on his forehead, calling out the entire UFC roster, and many more. He never seems to be afraid to say what he feels and has definitely helped the UFC reach new levels like we've never seen before. He is definitely one of the best trash talkers the sport has ever seen.